That's off. That's off. That's on. I think we're ready to go. All right, let's get this started then. Hello, Shadowcat back with more Babylon 5. I'm excited for this one. I've been waiting for this one. I've even done a little bit of pre-work on this one, even though I know I'm not supposed to, but hey, I mean, sometimes you just gotta do some things, especially since I had questions I needed to ask that I needed answers to, like, immediately, because I was trying to set everything up for this and get everything ready, and I had some difficulties. Then again, I've had a lot of difficulties so far with this module, and half of them have just been copyright stuff, which is why we don't even have a live background today. And I feel bad about that, but there's only so much that I can do right now. It's the end of the year, things are busy. But that's okay, that's okay, we're gonna do this. Before we get to this though, gotta go ahead and remind people that if you're here and you're not subscribed already, go ahead and push that button. There's a button right next to it though, it's a bell. Hit the bell icon, that we get notified every time these videos come out. If you know somebody else who's also into either Starfinder or Babylon 5, share this video out with them. Otherwise though, if you just like me, like what I'm doing here, leave a like on the video, on the stream. If you want to leave a comment down below though, might I suggest just coming to the Discord server. Come join us. Especially if you want to come play this module with us. And trust me, you do. It's going to be fun. Okay? There's going to be a lot of really, really awesome things going on in this module, and we're going to get to some of them today. So, that's going to be fun. We're going to get into it right now. Naturally, of course, we're going to check the chat. I see that JP is here. Hello, JP. Good to see you here. JP says not here long, heading out about 30 minutes. That's fine. At least you came. That was the good thing. I see that Blizz is here. Hello, Blizz. Good to see you too. And it looks like that's all I've got so far. So without further ado, we're going to get into this. JPL says last week was the quickest shutdown I've ever seen. Yeah, I mean, I heard somebody say that YouTube is starting to integrate more AI stuff into it, so that they can have constant monitoring of like all live streams at all times. And since all that is also tied into their whole copyright control thing, it means that they can shut that stuff down even faster. Again, the thing that I do not understand is that number one, I got the video off of YouTube. The video was explicitly just all of the Babylon 5 openers consolidated into one video. As a matter of fact, they were even ripped from the DVD, uploaded to YouTube, and the video was not young. Okay, it was not. I wonder if I can find that actually. How old was that video? Let me just pop on my phone here for a minute. If I go to my history... Well, my history is going to be like... Well, actually, no. Let me just go to this. Babylon 5 openings. That should do it. Let's see. All Babylon 5 opening and closing credits, the DVD version. Uploaded 7 years ago. So why is that still up? Okay, if it's such an egregious violation, why is that still up? And, to make things even more confusing, they took down my stream. At the same time, though, it has no restrictions on it. It's still visible. You can go watch it right now, for the very brief amount of time that it was up there. And you can still see it worldwide. It's not monetizable, but it's not restricted. And there's no mark on my channel. Make it make sense. So, I don't have a live background yet. I'm still working on that. I just haven't really had time. So, this is just what we're doing. We're not going to be looking at the background anyway for long, because we're going to be getting into things. And with that being said, let me go and pull everything in that we're going to need, because we're going to need to have our browser naturally. And we're going to need to have our spreadsheet. And you'll notice immediately that I went through and color-coded some things. I will get to that in a moment. Like I said, I try not to do a ton of pre-work, because I could literally build the entire thing off screen, and I could probably even get it done in a week, maybe. However, that would kind of make this pointless. And, you know, I want it to have a point. So, I mean, I try not to do a whole lot of work in the beginning. However, sometimes you got to do some work just to make sure that you can work on the stream. And that's why this happened. We'll get into that. Before we get there, though, we do have races that we can already work on. We have humans. We have Minbari, Centauri, Narn, the Dilgar, maybe. Well, it depends on how much information we have. The Dilgar actually kind of fall into this list more than anything else. Vorlons and Shadows. Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead and make a new sheet. And this one is going to be races and species. Oh, I can't put a slash in there? Fine. Alright. So first things first, let's go ahead and just format painter this. And that'll give us somewhere to work from. Now, before I actually get into doing this, let's discuss what happened down here. So, there are a lot of... There's a lot of species in what's called the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. Now, what is the League of Non-Aligned Worlds? Basically, what JMS did when he made Babylon 5 is he made his own version of the League of Nations, which wasn't necessarily a bad thing. The fact of the matter is that when you get into the Babylon 5 galaxy, the Minbari are an enormous power, to the point where other races literally just say, look, don't mess with them. They are not the oldest. They are not even technically one of the oldest. However, as far as the young races go, they are the oldest of the young races. They control a massive amount of space, their technology is second to none, and just don't mess with them. Okay? The same thing goes with the Centauri. They have an enormous empire that they control very well. The Narn... well, okay, they're important. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, at one point they did have an empire. It didn't last long. The Vorlons control an entire empire, and their empire is sealed off to outsiders to the point where no one who's gone there has ever come back. The Shadows, the entire galaxy is their playground. And the Dilgar had an empire, we know that much. However, humanity did kind of crush them. Other people helped too, but it was mostly humanity. So, where does that leave the rest of these guys in yellow and green? Well, they are all spacefaring civilizations. Most of them control at least some territory. They have domination over their own solar system. But that's about it for most of them. Some of them do have colonies and such in other solar systems, but by and large, they don't project a lot of military power, which means that you have two things that are kind of going to collide at once. Just because they do not have a great amount of military power doesn't mean that necessarily they're peaceful. After all, if you go back to the days of Greece, there were a couple of dozen different city-states in Greece. And I've explained this before when I had to explain, why do we have things like democracy? Well, Greece developed democracy because every single one of those city-states basically existed in a period of constant bloodshed. Now, it's not like you had people that were going outside every day and just slaughtering each other. However, the sword of Damocles never came down in Greece. Because it was just every day. If violence was a way to get what you wanted, then violence happened. And every city-state knew, every city-state was in the game, and so everybody lived under the constant threat of annihilation. Democracy was the way to put that aside, okay? We can either count hands, or we can count bodies. Which would you rather? And so that's kind of what's going on here. Most of these races do not have an incredible amount of military power, but they're still out there. And if left to their own devices, let's face it, the Drazi would probably try and kill everybody. So, we have the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. This is their attempt to keep everybody from killing each other. The problem here is who gets done and who doesn't. Now, originally, my thought was this. I was simply going to go back to the list of ships that we had over here. So, on this list of ships, we have the Centauri, the Drakh, the Earth Alliance, Psychor, the Alliance, and then we get down to the League. Okay, if we come down to the League, this is all the ships from the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, and I figured that anybody who's got a ship on this list obviously deserves to be represented. Okay? That was my initial thought. And then I took another look at the list. And we've got a gunship, a cruiser, and then a shuttle. A Drazi shuttle. Okay, well, we have shuttles. Now, on Earth, we have space shuttles. Having a shuttle is not exactly your claim to fame. Now, they also have the Sunhawk, which is great. So, Drazi are on the list. Corvette, a gunship, an Iksha warship. Oh, look at that, a Markab transport. It's the only ship on here with a Markab name, and that's because it showed up in exactly one episode for one scene, and that was it. That was it. And it is the only Markab ship that we have seen. Now, we know the Markab had ships, obviously. Did they have warships? I don't know. I don't know if they had actual warships, and I don't know if their warships weren't just a shuttle with a few rifles strapped to the outside. So, I can't really use this as a list to go by, because at this point, the Markab would be completely taken off. And then when I looked into some of these, if I look into, say, the Grom Corvette, this ship doesn't exist. It literally says that it was an unknown class of military vessel deployed by the Grom ruling body. It was designed by Luke Mayrind for the unreleased computer game Into the Fire. And that's all it is. It is a footnote on a page. There is no information, there is no design, there isn't even a napkin sketch. So that's out. And that actually applies to several of the ships on this list. Which means that if I were to use this list of just the warships that we know of, that we have seen and we have any information on, the races in green are the only ones who would actually get any development. And that's a problem, because while I don't necessarily know about all of these races off the top of my head, I do know that we have lots of information on the Berkiri, lots of information on the Drazi, we have lots of information on the Gaiam. And I absolutely want the Gaiam in this module because they're cool. I like them. We have information on the Markab because they had an entire episode devoted to them. We have an episode on the Pakmara, which I misspelled. There we go. Now it's fixed. We have information on the Pakmara because they have featured in multiple episodes. So using the ships as a metric, not going to work. So instead, we are going to just completely wipe this out. I'm going to have to go through every single one of these races and see if we have something. Now, I have managed to put up a set of criteria for this, because we have to have some kind of standard. I am only going to do a league race if I look at their race and they have a homeworld. Okay? If they have a homeworld, they're on the list. I need to have some kind of information about their biology. And it's got to be some kind of information that makes them unique enough that I can do something with it. And I need to have some information about their culture. If I do not have those three things, homeworld, biology, and culture, they're out. So if I come across one of these species and it's just a footnote with a picture, it's not getting done. Now, I know that I've got that for all the major races. I know I've got that for the Vorlons and the Shadows. So we're good. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and get into the actual module. So the first thing that we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to build a template. Now, this is not exactly going to be difficult. I've made templates before. We're going to come over here and we're going to look at this template in Starfinder, and we're going to base it off of this. So, things that we're going to need for a racial entry. We need to have a name, obviously. Next, ability modifiers. After that, hit points. Because everybody gets hit points. Now, size and type. Size and type. They put them together. I'm going to have that be two different entries because it's going to get weird sometimes. Now, we need to get into racial features. I'm going to put that like that, actually. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, actually. Okay, maybe 14 points too big. There we go. So, that's what we need there. Now, let's go ahead and start. Now, I haven't made a decision yet on the Minbari, what I'm going to do with them. I would like to do something for each of the casts. I thought about that one, and I would like to have a different, what was it? I like a subspecies. It's not actually a subspecies, but since they're raised in different ways and they do different things, I want to have something special for each one of them. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. I'll go ahead and start with them. So I'm gonna say Minbari, and we'll start with the warrior class. Now, before we do that, let's actually go and take a look at the Minbari. Alright, so, oldest of the younger races. They start on the planet Minbar, so like I said, right there, automatically, we know that we have a home planet for them. They're one of the major races in the series, so I know we've got information on them. Biology. They are bipedal. They have a distinct bony antler-like head ridge that grows from their temples, wrapping back around the nape of their neck and up to the crown. I mean, you can see them in the picture. They all have something on the back of their head. One thing that does make them distinct and sexually dimorphic is that all males will have multiple points along the back of their head, and all females have just a single point on the back of their head. Their little head bone thing is a lot smoother. Is it important? No, not really. But it's a thing. Tall and large Minbari are completely bald, possessing very little body hair or beyond eyelashes, though in a slight oddity, some males have been known to grow beards. This may be simple genetic throwback or ethnic variation, as even on Earth, certain groups are themselves less capable of facial hair growth. Alternatively, Minbari capable of growing facial hair may have inherited the trait from Valen's children, who had human DNA. Spoiler alert. Which, again, by the way, we're talking about a lot of things that if you haven't seen the series, it's going to be a spoiler. Let's see. Minbari earlobes are smaller compared to those of a human or centauri. They're located at the base of the neck, just below the mandibular angle. Minbari physiology is extremely resilient and able to keep functioning even after suffering substantial blood loss, multiple amputations, and other injuries that would easily kill a human. That right there speaks to us of increased constitution. This is at least partially stems from a very robust metabolism and high levels of endurance that allows them to breathe in relatively low oxygen atmospheres, and can typically go for food for as long as without food for as long as 2 weeks. I mean, that's true for humans too. However, their unique biochemistry means that they cannot imbibe alcohol without suffering drastic psychochemical reactions. Those that consume even small amounts suffer from sudden and extreme psychotic impulses accompanied by violent homicidal rages. Do not get them drunk. They will kill you. They do not perspire in the same way humans do, which is interesting but not necessarily important. Though their reproductive organs are similar to humans, Lort and her, their internal anatomy is significantly different. They're one of the many races known to have been altered by the Vorlons to produce telepaths. Again, spoilers. However, they are very naturally telepathic to begin with. And they are relatively long-lived, with the record being somewhere between 120 years. There's a whole thing on their head bones, which are not terribly important as far as I'm concerned. We have a lot of information on their culture and society, but biologically speaking, for purposes of our racial stuff, they are unnaturally tough, and this is true. We have seen Minbari just survive things that they absolutely should not. That right there speaks to a positive for Constitution. Now, one thing that I do note is strength. Now, they have a warrior caste. But the warrior caste is their military, and let's face it, most militaries, most modern militaries, and this is going to be even more true in future militaries, don't put necessarily as much emphasis on physical strength and martial combat, for obvious reasons. Should you learn to fight? Yes. Is fighting as important when you have guns? No. No, not really. And it does drop off even further when you introduce things like tanks and planes and starships and stuff like that. I say that because the warrior caste obviously trains, and they are obviously going to be the strongest of all the Minbari. But there is one episode, and I believe the episode is Rebirth. Not to spoil anything, I'm not going to go into that, but there is a scene in a bar where two of the main characters, one of them being human, one of them being Minbari, are having a talk because one of the other characters has been kidnapped. Now, when the human, hot-headed as ever, naturally, makes the mistake of actually grabbing the Minbari that he's talking to, the Minbari turns around, grabs him by the front of his shirt, and picks him up off the ground. Now that implies several things. Number one, that they're strong enough to do that at all. That means that they have a natural strength that belies their looks. Secondly, the character that did that, his name is Lanier. He is the attaché to Delenn, who is not just the ambassador to Babylon 5, she is part of the religious caste. If a member of the religious caste is fully capable of just turning around and lifting up a human off the floor with one hand, that means that by default, the Minbari are much, much stronger than humans are. And he even says so in that scene, not to paraphrase or to quote the entire scene. However, as soon as he grabs the other character, he simply says, "Do not touch me like that. We may look like you, but do not forget that we are not you." So, already in that one scene, we can say that naturally stronger and naturally tougher. There is nothing to necessarily show that they are more agile. There is nothing necessarily that shows that they are smarter, or more wise, or more charismatic. Now, are they? Are they in general smarter than pretty much everyone else in the room? Yes. Yes, they are. However, that is not a result of biology. That is a result of they're just an older race. They have more to teach, and they're better at teaching. And so when it comes to intelligence, are they more intelligent? No. Are they more wise? Naturally, also no. Are they more charismatic? I would dare say no. In fact, there are many people that find the Minbari to be off-putting. Can we still give them bonuses for that? Yes, we can. I mean, for example, if we looked at something like, say, elves. Elves tend to get a bonus to their wisdom as well. Why? Because elves tend to live for hundreds of years, and the plus 2 to wisdom helps to reflect that. Minbari do also live longer, but it depends. So, ability modifiers. I'm actually going to drag this down a little. For the warrior class, the warrior class are naturally going to get bonuses. The weird thing here is, like, how do we keep it balanced? Because we do have to balance these a little bit. Generally speaking, the rule is either 1 bonus or 2 bonuses and 1 penalty. And if you want to go further, you can even take it up to 3 bonuses if you have 2 penalties. I'm going to have a really, really hard time penalizing the Minbari. Just because they're better. They really are. It may simply be an issue that I give them 3 bonuses. And that's just how it's going to have to work. Why would anybody then not play a Minbari? Well, there's not really a reason to play them. Having 3 bonuses is nice, but it's not the end of the world, especially in Starfinder. And I have a current game that is running right now called The B Team. It's set in the Star Trek universe. And if you want to join that game, again, join the Discord and you can. However, one of the things that my players have kind of realized in the B Team is that a lot of the stats are less important in a sci-fi setting. For example, strength. I kind of referenced that when I was talking about the whole military thing. Strength is not necessarily that important when you have guns. It is still important, and you should make sure that you're in at least fair shape, but it's not nearly as important. Similarly, carrying capacity doesn't matter nearly as much when you're not carrying everything everywhere. And so having a big bonus in strength is great when you need it, but it's much more situational. It's also much more situational to have a higher constitution when you're not necessarily being threatened all the time. And so, yeah, if your most important roles are all like intelligence related, having better physical modifiers, not the worst thing in the world. Or not the best thing in the world, rather. So I think what I'm going to do here for my warrior class, I'm going to give a +4 to strength. Now that is an incredibly high number. But again, like I just said, greater melee capability, greater carrying capacity in a world of blasters and battleships. And a +2 to Constitution. Now that is just naturally, that's default for being a Minbari. And that's about it. The warrior class are not necessarily better educated, they're not necessarily more nimble. As a matter of fact, warrior cats I think are actually trained not to dodge. They're not more wise, they're not more charismatic, they're definitely not more charismatic. I mean, if I was going to give them a penalty anywhere, it would probably be in their charisma. In fact, I can do that. Let's give them a penalty to charisma. Alright, now, hit die, because everyone is going to, or hit points rather, because everyone's going to start off with a certain number of hit points, just by virtue of being them. And if we come over and we look at humans, we can see that humans start off with 4 hit points. And since the Minbari we know are tougher than humans, to the point where, you know, you could, like, bleed them out and they're still alive. Let's go ahead and give them... Let's give them 6. 6 is a good number for this. It means that your baseline human, without a class, I mean, they're just a human, if they had 4 points and the Minbari has 6, and you dealt 4 points of damage to both of them, the human would be dead, the Minbari would be dying, essentially. Let's see. Oh, PC's in the chat. Hello, PC. PC says Piccolo would be disappointed. I don't think Piccolo would be disappointed. I'm not even sure what Piccolo would be disappointed in, to be honest. But okay, I mean, I think that'd be fine. Oh, wait, is it the dismembering thing? Yeah, Minbari don't get to grow things back. Okay, so we got that. Now, as far as size goes, they are going to be medium. Type, they're humanoid. Racial features. Now, this is going to be a little bit weird, because what racial features do the Minbari necessarily get? This is going to be anything that isn't necessarily a number. It's going to be hard to say, though. Racial features for the Minbari. See, biologically speaking, we already covered everything that makes them unique. They are stronger and they are tougher. And that's about it. I mean, true, there are more Minbari telepaths than there are in other races, but that's going to be an entirely separate thing, okay? That'll be entirely separate. Otherwise, they really have no special features, no special abilities, and quite frankly, they're very, very similar to humans in that regard, to the point where it's actually a big, big plot point that humans and Minbari are practically sister races. Oh, PC says no, that they won't dodge! I mean, this is also fair. As Minbari and humans are essentially sister races, I think that I might just copy the humans' racial traits. Which is just a bonus feat and skilled. And that does seem to fit the Minbari very well. So bonus feat and skilled. Let's see. Blizz says, do they get a slight bonus on the bone crown of the back of their heads? No. No, they do not. Not in Starfinder, at least. So if we were to go all the way back, we're going to go way back, okay? Way, way back to the days of Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition or Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Back then, when things were still being kind of worked out, wearing a helmet, specifically wearing a helmet of some kind, gave you immunity to critical hits. If we were to go by those rules, I could actually go through and say that Minbari were immune to critical hits. However, that was like 30 years ago. And we're not playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons because I hate THAC0. So in this case, no, it's not going to give them any kind of bonus. That being said, there could be narrative stuff going on. Like if you're wandering into a tavern or something and somebody goes to crack you over the back of the head with, say, a bottle, and your character happens to be Minbari, you can say, okay, fine. I feel the impact on the bone crown of the back of my head. I turn around and choke the life out of them. So, I mean, there's that. You could get bonuses out of it, it just depends on how you're going to sell it. Alright, so, Minbari Warrior class. They are going to get a bonus feat, they're going to be skilled. I'm actually going to change this a little bit. This is the warrior class. I'm going to give them a bonus feat. However, I'm going to do this instead. They're going to get a combat feat. Okay? Because it's not just going to be any generic bonus feat that they get at level 1. They're going to get a combat feat. That makes more sense. I'm going to go ahead and color code that, just because it makes it a little bit easier to read and keep everything differentiated. Alright, so, Minbari, warrior class. Super simple. Let's move on then to another one. The Minbari religious cast. I put class up here. Should be cast. And that is a very specific thing to point out. Like, you're going to get to pick your character and make whatever character you want, but it is a caste system. You are born into the warrior caste. You are born into the religious caste. You are born into the worker caste. And you are not allowed to do anything else other than whatever your caste is supposed to do. Which again becomes a pretty major plot point later on in the show. Not important to what we're doing now, but it will be. It was important there. Ability score modifiers. +2 to strength. Naturally. As I said, Linear managed to lift up a fully grown adult male human off the floor with one hand, and he's part of the religious caste. +2 to Constitution. Now, if we were going to be doing anything, if we're going to be penalizing anything for the religious caste, I can guarantee you it is not going to be intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. It's basically the only thing they do from the time they're children. Ergo, the only thing really left for us to do is a -2 to dexterity. They don't know how to fight, per se. Actually, that's not even true either. That's... Like, they're the religious caste, however, every single one of them is also trained in some form of self-defense. And that's before you throw in ranger training, just in case any of them wanted to join up with the rangers. So it's kind of hard to really penalize them on anything. The Minbari are just better than you. I'm not the one that wrote the show. They're going to get the same hit points. Size, still going to be medium. Type, still going to be humanoid. Racial features. Now, this one could absolutely just be a bonus feat and skilled. Because that makes sense for them. They can basically do whatever they want because they are the religious caste. If you wanted to train a combat feat, you can. I mean, you don't necessarily have to, but you can. And so that's going to lead us down to the last one, which will be the Minbari worker caste. Now, I'm just going to copy these down from the religious caste because they're going to get these two. And then what do we give them? I had penalized the Minbari religious caste in dexterity, but that's not fair because... That's a +6 and a -2. This is a +4 and a -2. So I'm not balanced here. I need to change this actually. So if it's not going to be a penalty to dexterity, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a +2 on their wisdom. Okay, I'm not actually going to penalize their dexterity. They're no less dexterous than humans are. I'm just going to give them the +2 on wisdom because they literally spend their entire lives in the religious caste. Which means that the worker caste is going to get a +2 in intelligence. Now, why that? The reason why is simple. They spend their entire lives learning to do things. And if we were to come over to here and go down to skills. They don't give a handy dandy little chart here, but computers is an intelligence skill. Culture is an intelligence skill. Engineering is an intelligence skill. Life science, medicine, physical science, your profession, whatever that happens to be. You have your choice of being charisma, intelligence, or wisdom, but hey, intelligence right there. All of those are intelligence, and all of those are things that workers would be doing. It's your job, or your sciences, physical or life. Being a doctor is intelligence. Anything with engineering, they're the ones who build things and keep things running. And so it makes sense that they get a bonus to their intelligence because, again, they've been doing it their entire lives. Which means that the only Minbari that actually has a penalty will be the warrior caste. It's going to be a -2 to their charisma because they just do not talk to people. The hit points is still going to be a 6. And pretty much everything else is going to remain the same. And so I think that's good. As the oldest of the young races, I think this suits them very well. Now, none of them got bonuses to charisma. The warrior caste takes a penalty to charisma. Again, that's because most of the galaxy finds the Minbari a little hard to deal with. So that actually is going to work out pretty well. Alright, so we still have lots of other races to get through. Let's get to them. Next up on the list. If we back up from here, next up is going to be the Centauri. Alright, Centauri are, again, not terribly interesting. See, when it comes to a setting like Star Wars or even Star Trek, they do try to make all the different races wildly different to help add diversity. In Babylon 5, all the differences are actually very subtle, and it's actually kind of the point. Babylon 5 wants everybody to look different, but at the end of the day, they all want everyone to realize that they're more alike than they are different. And so having great differences between a lot of the species, kind of hard sometimes. The Centauri, though, let's take a look at them. Again, like I said, our rules are they need to have a home world, they need to have a biology, and they need to have a culture. We've got that. So, biology. These Centauri are bipedal humans, in appearance similar enough to humans that the species could easily pass for one another under casual inspection, apart from the obvious distinctive hairstyles and attire. But hey, that's clothing. Fact is that if you took off the hair and just changed the clothes a little bit, yeah, they could pass for human. Let's see. The males often have hair, while females are usually bald or barely have any hair. They live to be about 150 years old. Now, what do we know about their biology? Their cardiovascular system. PC says a +10 to arrogance for them. That's not fair. It's a little fair. Okay, just a little bit, though. Not every Centauri is an asshole. The cardiovascular system of Centauri has 2 hearts instead of a single heart that humans have. The right heart is a solid mass of muscle which provides most of the force behind the blood circulation. The left heart is more complex, made up of an intricate system of thousands of veins that helps clean the blood in a manner similar to human kidneys. As a result, a heart attack in the left heart is very serious because it is very difficult to repair. We saw that in one episode, which is why they included it here. Reproduction. The most blatant external difference between Centauri and humans is their reproductive system, but I can tell you that it's not going to give us a number difference. So, extrasensory perception. They have an extrasensory perception to varying degrees, generally manifesting as precognitive abilities. Most Centauri have limited perceptions, enjoying only rare fleeting glimpses of the future. However, some Centauri will experience vivid prophetic dreams telling them of a time and the circumstances of their death. A rare few Centauri, exclusively female, have very strong prophetic abilities. They're often given a special status in Centauri society that is much higher than they would normally be given to a female. It should be noted that Centauri society is essentially similar to Victorian England, and it basically just kind of stopped there. And JP says, gotta run. Have a good day. You have a good day too, JP. Thank you for coming, and take care. Also, I missed Blizz leaving. I don't know if you're going to hear this. You probably won't hear this. However, in case you do, thank you for coming, and you have a good day too. Take care. feel like everyone's abandoning me now. Oh well, the show must go on. Let's see. The widow of one of the emperors is said to have had extensive precognitive abilities to the point where she was considered a great prophet and could see glimpses of someone's future just from the touch of their hand. This also acts as if she speaks for herself and her late husband. I don't know exactly how we would interpret that. However, we'll look into it. Some Centauri are telepaths, but this is true among most of the races. Society and culture, not terribly important for us, although possibly. See, when we look at these Centauri, are these Centauri stronger than any other races? Not generally, no. Are they more dexterous than other races? Not generally, no. Are they tougher than other races? Also, not generally, no. So, what do they get then? Are they smarter? No. Not necessarily. Are they wiser? No. Are they more charismatic? I would argue the answer to that is yes. These Centauri are nothing but charisma. Now, anybody who's seen the series may question that and say, are the Centauri really all that are they really all that charismatic? I mean, would you want to be stuck in a room with a Centauri? And the answer to that for most people would be no. But that does them a disservice. The Centauri, because they grow up in what is essentially Victorian England frozen in time, society is everything to the Centauri. Okay? Society, status, and reputation. And those things can only flourish if you have the charisma to back them up. You can be whatever alignment you want. You can be lawful good, lawful evil, or chaotic evil. And you can advance your plans in whatever way you feel is best. However, none of that is going to do anything unless you have the charisma to actually make it happen, because if the entire world is against you, you're not going to do anything. So I think the only reasonable thing to say is for the Centauri a +2 to charisma. And that's really it. It is the only thing that they necessarily have on humans, and even then it's only because Centauri society is wholly focused on this game of houses. Are they necessarily more charismatic than humans? No, but only a few humans would ever play the game to a Centauri level, whereas most humans would be content to just ignore it or even rebel against it. So a +2 to charisma just for their societal-wide focus on it. Hit points, we'll give them a 4. Why a 4? Because that's what humans got, and Centauri, not that much different than humans. Size and type is going to be medium and humanoid. Now, as for racial features, now here's where this is going to get really, really interesting. Let's go ahead and start with that precognitive ability. Now, there is no ability that I can necessarily put in there that is going to cover that. But when we come to magic in Starfinder, because magic does exist in Starfinder, we're not going to be using a lot, but we do have the Technomancer, so I feel a little bit better about going to this. There is a class which is all about precognition. And so, I want to go ahead and look at what the precogs get and see if perhaps we can borrow something. Now, The precognitive abilities that they were talking about were not, they were not exactly the kind of thing that they would use every day. Like I said, most Centauri seem to get this vision. It's like a recurring dream. If you've ever had recurring dreams, you know what I'm talking about, where you have the same dream and it just happens over and over and over again, hence recurring. You're in the same place, the same time, the same events happen. If you're a lucid dreamer, maybe you can even try and take that dream in different directions, but either way, you keep ending up back at the same place. This is essentially the precognition they're talking about, where they just keep dreaming about their own death. Now, that's very specific and also very, very long term. It's not like they can necessarily tell when somebody's about to walk around a corner or open a door. Which means that most of these things that just like happen on a whim, not going to happen. What we're going to want to do is come to the very bottom of the list and see what this looks like. So like no level, rewrite time. No, obviously we can't do that. But let's look at what the highest level of the precog is and what we can use. So, Akashic Investigation, generate a magical reenactment of recent events? No. Anti-magic burst? No. Blessing of Youth? No. Cheat time? No. Chronal Assault, you appear to teleport repeatedly, making attach each time you appear? No. Centauri can't time travel. Same with Chronosphere. Conduit of Destruction? Well, that definitely seems to explain one Centauri. Control Undead? No. Death's Door? No. Disintegrate? No. Embrace the Void? I think that's alcohol. Let's see. Enshrining Refuge, Erase Existence, they only wish. Ethereal Jaunt, Force Cage, Glimpse the End. Now here's something that could be interesting. Glimpse the End. Okay. Classes Mystic 6, Precog 6, Witchwarper 6. What does it do? You give the target a vision of the end of the material plane as it's consumed by entropy. The target witnesses all the stars in the universe dim simultaneously, and the planets throughout the galaxy crumble into nothingness. The sight deals 15d10 damage to a creature and gives it the panicked condition for 1 round. Okay, that is severely cool. Not quite what we're looking for. Interplanetary teleport? No. Mass invisibility? No. Magic arrow? Also no. Magic seal, obfuscate drift beacons, planar barrier, planar binding, plane shift, plurality strike, psychic surgery, regenerate, greater resistant armor, rotting touch, snuff life, stop heart, summon drift beacons, terraform, true seeing. No, they can't see invisible things. Usher apocalypse. No. Vision. Now there's something. Answer a question about a person, place, or object. Okay. School of Divination. Casting time is 1 standard action. You pose a question about some person, place, or object while casting the spell. If the person or object is at hand, or if you are in a place to question, you succeed at a caster level check. You receive a vision about a person, place, or object. The information gained includes everything available about the target that could be discovered by spending weeks in dedicated research with excellent quality but standard reference works. So if the person or object is not at hand, or you are not in the place and you know only detailed information about it, the DC of the caster level check is 25 and the information is gained is incomplete. Although it does provide enough information to help you find the person, place, or thing. If you know only rumors, the DC becomes 30, and if the information gained is vague, in most circumstances, you can't glean information about what occurred during the gap with this spell. So, casting the spell requires access to a computer or similar device which displays the information gained. Additionally, casting the spell places a considerable strain on you, requiring you to spend 1 resolve point. Okay, so this is a level 6 spell, which already is a great limiter on it because it is very powerful. You could do this, in theory, once per day. I need this to be available to an entire race, and I need it to be available at level 1. Which means that, for starters, it cannot be every day. What I can do, I think... What I can do is I can do this. Once per day, vision. However, instead of a DC, instead of there being a DC to roll, it's going to be a roll 1d20 only on 20. Now, that means that essentially it's going to be free every day. You can use or attempt to summon a vision every single day, and it's probably going to fail. It's going to fail almost every single time, which it should. This is not the kind of thing that should be happening every day. It should only be happening... I was going to say when it's important, but even that's not true. It should happen rarely. This will ensure that, and it's still a 5% chance. It's still a 5% chance. Now, in addition to this, because that's something that they get biologically, when it comes to other things that are going to make them special, I want to go look at feats. And specifically, I want to give them some kind of feat that comes with, well, actually, no. Skill focus might do it. Oh, that's not these. Skill focus is probably going to be under general. Feat descriptions. If I come all the way down to the S's, that's too far. Skill focus. Skill focus and skill synergy. I think that I want skill focus. And it's going to be skill focus. But specifically, a skill focus on diplomacy. Well, bluff, diplomacy, or intimidate. And that's going to reinforce the whole, the Centauri are a very social society. Now, how you engage with that society is up to you. If you would like to be the world's best and most consummate liar, you can. If you want to just be a straight-up diplomat, that's an option too. Or if you want to engage in threats or blackmail, that's an option too. However you want to be a Centauri, you're allowed to be a Centauri. And so that should do it for them. I feel like we've covered everything that was really needed. Again, they mentioned telepaths, but that's just because that the Centauri tend to hold their telepaths in really high regard, and that's not specific to them. Alright, so that's Centauri. We're going to move on to the next one. Humans, we already know humans. We've already got an entry for humans, so we're going to skip the humans. We'll go to the Narn. Now, the Narn are a little bit different. They are actually kind of one of the younger of the young races. Well, I guess they're not necessarily younger, but they're just not as widespread as some of the others. Anyway, biology. So, although somewhat reptilian in appearance, the Narn are actually have more in common with Earth's marsupials and felines than reptiles. As with many species, their reproduction is heterosexual and viviparous, beginning with a direct male-to-female mating, which doesn't really matter because we're not going to be doing that. What we need to find is stuff about, like, their adult biology. In terms of appearance, they are hairless, generally taller than most humans, and have a more stocky build and have a yellow-orange complexion distinctly modeled with patterns of brown and or green spots. Narn eyes are for the most part tinted red, and this gives them with very acute vision encompassing the infrared spectrum. That's cool. So, already they can see in infrared. Let's come right down here. I'm going to put Narn right here. And down here under racial features, infrared vision. That's important. Let's see. A supple yet tough bone structure and thick skin endows them with a higher degree of resilience, that's constitution, to physical harm than most other humanoids, a trait the Centauri pain technicians tested to its limit. Aside from mere protection, their tough leathery epidermis not only manages both internal and external temperatures, but also stores a quantity of fluids and energy that allow the Narn to hibernate for several days at a time. Again, when we're talking about things like starvation rules or just endurance in general, that falls under fortitude, and fortitude is affected by constitution. So it's fine. Narn DNA is open to genetic manipulation, as such Narns have become adept at gene engineering, both their own genome and that of other humanoid races. Interesting, but this is not the kind of thing that your average person would be doing, and so I can't give it to them on like a general basis. Mindwalkers, that's just the Narn word for telepaths, they have none anymore. But that's fine. So, are they stronger? According to this, not really. Now, everything that we have seen in the show would imply that they are. They typically engage in martial arts. They typically work as soldiers or security. However, that could not necessarily be because they are inherently stronger. It could just be because they're tougher, and it makes them look stronger by comparison. I'm trying to think here of any scene from Babylon 5 where a Narn was shown to be physically stronger than any of the other races. And to be fair, I'm not finding one. There were episodes later in the series during the Earth Civil War where Narn were working as security and fighting off human troops. And they were basically the equals of the human troops. We've also seen the Narn fighting with Centauri. And again, casualties on both sides. I don't think they're actually stronger. I think that for the Narn, it's just going to be a +2 to Constitution. They are just naturally tougher than everyone else. Now, hit points. Do they get any other hit points? I don't know. If I were to go back to the races in Starfinder and look at some of the others, like we have the Vesk. The Vesk gets 6 hit points, and they are stronger, tougher. I mean, it's these guys. They're basically Dragonborn. So that kind of makes sense. However, in saying that they're Dragonborn, it literally says the reptilian Vesk are exactly as predatory and warlike as they appear. As they pointed out talking about the Narn, they might look reptilian, but they're not. They have more in common with marsupials or felines. So I feel like giving them a 4 for their hit points fits. I'm going to do that. The size is going to be medium. The type is going to be humanoid. We already gave them their infrared vision, which was interesting. I didn't know about that one. But is there anything else? I don't think so. I mean, they look different, but that's just... That doesn't do anything. Supple yet tough bone structure and thick skin. Higher resilience to physical harm. Aside from air protection, matches internal and external body temperature, stores quantity of fluids and energies, allows them to hibernate for several days at a time. Actually, that right there is more important. See, if it had said food, like it did with the Minbari, the rule of threes says that any normal human can go 3 minutes without oxygen, 3 hours without some kind of shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. A Minbari fasting for 2 weeks is not a big deal. Humans have done that too. And not once or twice. A 2-week hunger strike, been done multiple times. Water, however. Now that's interesting. Holding enough water to hibernate for several days at a time. That's worth something. If we come back here to feats, I'm going to come back up to E. Let's see, enhanced resistance, entropic sight, no. Do they not have endurance? I guess they don't have endurance. Weird. I think that's one of those that I had to borrow from Pathfinder the last time. There's got to be something in here, though, that does the same thing. I just don't know what it is. Die Hard, no. Diligent, no. I wonder if I were to just search for Fortitude. Great Fortitude. +2 bonus to Fortitude saves. Improved Great Fortitude. Spend 1 resolve point to re-roll a Fortitude save. Last Ditch Effort, no. Vile Rejection, no. And that just takes us back to Great Fortitude. And that's all it is just Great Fortitude. It's just a general bonus blanket +2 Fortitude to saving throws. Okay, why not? Why not? We can do that. Great fortitude. So, even if you were to pick a class which does not have a strong fortitude, it would be possible for you to still have a decent fortitude. Alright, so I think that's good enough for the Narn. I can't think of anything else to really add for them. We'll go through and we'll do the next one. Now, the next race on here, I'm still a little iffy on, and so we'll take a look and see what they even have. And that's the Dilgar. So the Dilgar do not exist in the time of Babylon 5. By the time the series occurs, the Dilgar have been all but wiped out. They are regarded as extinct, which is why when she shows up, well, at first, nobody even recognizes her species. They've been gone that long. Nobody even knows what a Dilgar looks anymore. And it's only when one person whose family actually fought the Dilgar sees her that she gets attacked and everybody realizes that, oh, there is a Dilgar still alive. Alright, so, when we look at this, there's information on the Dilgar War. However, we're looking at everything here, okay? This is all of it. The Dilgar were an aggressive, feline-like humanoid species. They attempted to expand their territory by invading those sectors of space held by the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. As the Dilgar War broke out, Earth Alliance fought on the side of the League and battled the Dilgar, forcing them back to their homeworld, while a number of their participating leaders were brought to justice. As the war ended, the Dilgar's sun went supernova. Okay, that explains a lot. Effectively wiping out their entire species. Only the Jadur, the most brutal leader of the Dilgar invasion force, survived. Now, notice what is not here. It does mention that they have a home world, but it doesn't say anything about it. We have nothing on their biology, nothing on their culture, and by the same token as we use for the League, there's nothing here to work on. I'm not going to try and invent the Dilgar from whole cloth, so they're gone. And so that takes care of the major races. Now, as far as the League races go, I could jump straight down to the Vorlons and the Shadows. I know we've got enough for them. But I'm going to go through the League first. After all, let's save the best for last. And besides, some of these may go quickly. So we'll start with the Abai. They are a sentient humanoid race, one of the younger races, governed by the Abai Matriarchate. Members of both League and Non-Aligned Worlds, the Interstellar Alliance. They're one of the many races devastated by the Dilgar invasion, particularly by Jadur. Okay, again, what are we looking for? We're looking for a homeworld, biology, and society. Now, biology, it says that they are humanoid amphibians. They can be distinguished from other races by their distinctive fish-like ridge crest. They also possess a raised bone structure above the eyes, very pronounced cheekbones. Like humans, they have 5-fingered hands. Feet possess no external digits. That's interesting. They don't have toes. Their hairless skin is thicker than that of humans and comes in 3 basic ethnic groups, colored either pink, brown, or red. Being amphibious in nature, they can breathe both air and water, and in nitrogen-oxygen atmospheres. The air is inhaled through their nasal passages, while water is drawn in through the series of gill slits on their torso. Their reproduction is there, but not important to us. They have a low birth rate, also not important to us. All Abai possess a telepathic ability in the form of very limited empathic senses, which they're able to sense the feelings of other sentients, although the ability tends to be more pronounced in females. Okay. We do have some information on their society, which the only thing that's really pronounced here is the fact that they are a matriarchy and natural swimming, so they like aquatic sports. Do we have anything on their homeworld, though? I mean, they have one, obviously. They exist. No, we do have a homeworld. Sumsha, which is ABBA 4. We have information on their homeworld. Alright, so they're going to get a race. So, Abai. What are they going to get for an ability modifier? The fact of the matter is that, are they stronger? Debatable. They don't appear stronger, and it says nothing about that. Are they more dexterous? I would argue yes, and for one specific reason. They're aquatic. Because they are aquatic, they are going to be more accustomed to operating in 3 dimensions. This means that they're going to think differently when it comes to things like martial combat. They'll think differently when it comes to flying. They're going to think different. So a +2 to dexterity. As far as hit points go, they are not regarded as being any tougher. They have tougher skin, sure, but I don't think it's tough enough to really regard them as having a higher constitution or more hit points. They are medium-sized. They are humanoid. Racial features. They are amphibious. Now, I don't know if they have anything for that. Where would I even find that? Licenses, classes, aliens, afflictions. Universal monster rules. Morphous amphibious. Here we go. A creature with has the aquatic subtype or water breathing, but it can breathe both air and land. So that's fair. So type, humanoid, and aquatic. That's a good point. That's a really good point there. And so there we go. That's all we need there. They are amphibious. It doesn't necessarily say anything else about them, though. There's nothing in their society that I think we need to include. They prize cooperation, beauty, knowledge, philosophy, gentility, and they are very curious. Great qualities. Nothing that we need to write down, though. They shun large settlements or cities, preferring small villages. Again, not important for us. They love games. Natural swimmers. However, swimming is dexterity-based, I believe. Let me double check that. Survival? Is it survival or is it athletics? I'm not sure. Skills, let's see, endure severe weather, follow tracks, live off the land. Riding a creature, no, it's not here. Which means it's going to be athletics? Ah, yeah, scale vertical surfaces, leap over obstacles, or swim. Okay, so athletics is a strength thing. Which means it means that we're gonna get a little bit different here. The fact that they are already amphibious means that they already have a they already do not need to make swim checks because they can't drown. They can breathe water. I'm going to give them a swim speed. And the swim speed will be equal to their land speed. Okay? And that should take care of that for the Abai. So we'll go ahead and just move that over. All right, perfect. And so that's 3 more down. Next one up. Let's go back and take a look and see what else we can do. So that's kind of surprising. I didn't think we had that much information. Let's go to the Belosian. Alright, so the Belosians are a minor race. They can be distinguished by their elongated, almost cone-like skulls that gently curve backwards. Several worked for Auk as dancers and waitresses at the Dark Star nightclub. Prior to their extinction, the Markab had special treaties with the Belosians. Sometime during the Dilgar War, their race was conquered by the Dilgar Empire. During this period, violent experiments were performed on a portion of their population until Earthforce helped liberate their homeworld. And that's literally all we know. So, they're out. There's nothing I can do with them. Alright, so we're moving on then. Brakiri. Now, I don't even have to ask. I know that we have information on the Brakiri. The question is then going to become, what can we do with them? So, obviously their homeworld is Brakir. We have information on it. Their government is the Syndicracy. And let's look into who are they. So, biology. Bipedal humanoid race. They are naturally nocturnal and can be distinguished from other races by their pronounced bone ridges above their eyes and on the sides of their cheeks. Large or elongated nostrils and high, sometimes cleaved foreheads. Like humans, they have 2 5-fingered hands and 2 5-toed feet, because it's really awkward to get actors that have 6 toes. Their hair is generally worn long and unadorned, shades of black, red, or brown. Some are known to be bald, although either through natural hair loss or personal choice. Their skin colors can vary from white, beige, yellow, brown, black, and light gray. Like many other species, they reproduce through the coupling of males and females. That's fine, but we don't need to worry about that. They can produce a surprisingly high-pitched wailing sound which can be heard by many or any other member of their race within a 100-meter radius. The wail can carry one of several meanings, depending on its exact pitch, and it can serve as a warning, cry for help, or call for gathering, etc. Society. Brakiri civilization started around 6,000 years prior. There's nothing really much here. There really isn't. As a matter of fact, I'm not seeing anything that really makes them terribly special. Otherwise, Brakiri's social structure is very similar to that of Earth during the 20th century, and surprisingly, similarities are little more than coincidental. When Brakiri first began to explore the possibility of life on other worlds, they managed to catch early television and radio signals from Earth. The images they received began the subject of fascination for the Brakiri, and the whole style grew up around them. Later, when the Brakiri went into space, they sought contact with Earth, considering humans to be a kindred race. And considering how physically similar they are, they do have deep religious traditions, which are quite frightening because their gods are real. We do not know exactly why, but they definitely are real. However, there's just not enough here to make a Brakiri. As far as racial stats go, they're basically just human. And I'm going to have to treat them as such. which is kind of weird. They are a race that features in just, oh, so many episodes. It doesn't even list them here. There's a lot of them. But there's just nothing here that makes them special. Alright, so we're going to move on. The Cascor. They're an insectoid race native to Jeeve, and they're members of League of Non-Alien Worlds. Physically small, somewhat beetle-like appearance, and that is literally it. They're out. Drazi. Now, these guys should be interesting, because they are very different. So, they are one of the younger races. The Drazi Freehold's member of the League and the Interstellar Alliance, and that's what they look like. I don't even know if they're actually reptilian, but they kind of look like it. The only real question is, which is superior, green or purple? The world may never know. Alright, biology. They are humanoid reptilians. In appearance with a distinctive scaly brow and ridged scales down the back of their head. Some also feature small spikes on their cheeks, which they consider to be a mark of age. Drazi blood is a milky white color. Like humans, Drazi are four-limbed bipeds that have 5 digits on their hands and feet. They are hairless. They have scales, which are hard and can withstand temperatures in excess of 49 degrees Celsius. What does that even mean? No, really, what does that mean? What is 49 degrees Celsius? Hold on, I can check this. Celsius. 49 degrees. 49 degrees is only 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, that's hot, don't get me wrong, but that's really your claim to fame? Sure, I guess. Let's see, they're divided into 4 basic ethnic groups, colored either purple, green, brown, or black. The Drazi have a very acute sense of smell and can track a scent up to 50 meters away. Okay, that's going on the list. So, Brakiri, you're out. Drazi, you're in. And racial features, scent. They produce like many other species with male and female couplings. Although, once fertilized, the female's eggs grow inside her for 4 to 6 months. Okay, they don't actually lay eggs. Until then, they are naturally expelled, and they will hatch almost instantly. So they do lay eggs, but they don't have to, like, sit on them or anything. Drazi young are surprisingly tough and can usually walk within 3 months. Once fully mature, they reach a natural height. Drazi are known to be able to reproduce with only one other species, the Yolu. Somebody had to YOLO to find out they can breed with the Yolu. That is actually all it really says, though. So, if we were going to be giving them anything, ability modifiers, it's going to be a +2 Constitution. Now, why do I say that? Well, number one, they are naturally tougher. It says that they're covered in scales, and those scales make them tougher, so that's fine. Also, they're allowed to survive, or they can survive temperatures in excess of 49 degrees Celsius, or 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That would be considered hot. So, if I was to get into environments, settings, systems and settlements, nope, not what I'm looking for. Rules, maybe. If I'm looking at rules, equipment, tactical rules, starships, adventures, environment. Here we go. So this is where we need to talk about things like temperature, biomes, PC says, I think that 120 degrees survival means that they can live in it as opposed to humans who can only adapt to it for a little bit. Possibly. Let me go back and reread that. Let me go back. Their hairless scales are thick, hard, and can withstand temperatures in excess of 49 degrees Celsius. I think that we have to look at the choice of words there. Withstand. Humans can withstand a lot. That does not necessarily mean that humans can survive in a lot. I think that it might be fair to say that, on average, more Drazi would be able to withstand that than humans, or perhaps withstand it for longer than humans. So perhaps you might be right. I don't think it's necessarily live in it. But for example, if we're talking like construction workers, anybody who works in construction has worked on a hot day. In particular, like I used to live back in Texas. And in Texas, it's possible for it to get well over 100 in the shade. If you're working construction not in the shade, generally. Which means that in the sun, I think that temperatures could spike, theoretically, as high as 120. I don't know. I've never actually measured the temperature in the sun before. However, humans struggle to do that. Even hardened construction workers will say that working in a place like Texas in the summer is basically hell. Just because it can be done doesn't necessarily mean that it can be done safely. Now, I say that, but I need to get back to what I was saying. PC says, oh, it means that their scales can withstand the heat, so no injuries from 120 degrees when humans would get third-degree burns. Basically, fire resistance. I'm not even sure about that. It might mean that they're impervious to sunburns. Third-degree burns, though, third degree's a lot. You have to be exposed to a lot of heat. Third degree is basically burn victim. And fire is several hundred degrees. Even if it's just like a paper or wood fire is several hundred degrees. I don't think this is really as important as they made it out to be. I think it's one of those things that they put into the data, but it's actually not as impressive. And, you know, this is not uncommon, especially in sci-fi, or even to a limited degree in fantasy, when they'll say that, you know, we have this ship that goes so very fast, then you do the actual math, and it's like, wait, your ship goes about as fast as Power Wheels. I was actually watching an episode of Space Dock the other day when they did an episode. Well, I say they. He did an episode? I'm not exactly sure how many people work on that. It might just be him. When he did an episode on inconsistencies. And one of the things that he pointed out was when, I think it was Terminator 2, when Arnold Schwarzenegger, as the Terminator, goes back in time, walks into a gun store, and says that he needs a plasma rifle in the 40-watt range. 40 watts is a dim light bulb. And if you're not really thinking about it, it's like, oh wow, plasma rifle and 40 watts, that's got to be big. And then the moment that you think about it for more than 5 seconds, it's like, oh. So if he shines it at me, I might be able to read a comic book. I think this is kind of in that area. It's like they put it in here because it sounds very impressive until you think more than 5 minutes about it. I'm still going to give them the bonus to the Constitution just because they are tougher. However, I want to go back to the environment rules. PC says if you put a soldering iron of 120 degrees against your skin and hold it there, it will be a 3rd-degree burn. Their scales would just say, is that it? Okay, well, first off, is a soldering iron 120 degrees? I don't know. I really don't. Hold on a second. I'm going to find out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask the AI, what is the melting point of solder? And the AI says that the melting point of solder depends heavily on the type and alloy because solder isn't one material. Here are some common ones. Lead-based solder, which is older and traditional, is about 40-60 tin in lead and melts at approximately 183 to 190 degrees Celsius, or 361 to 374 degrees Fahrenheit. PC says, actually, it's usually a lot more. I think that's what we're finding out. A 6337 tin lead melts at about 183 degrees Celsius, or 361 Fahrenheit. Lead-free solders, which are more modern and RoHS compliant, I don't know what that means, are typically 217 to 221 degrees Celsius. There is a low-temperature solder, though. Okay, this is bismuth-based. And it says that this melts as low as 138 degrees Celsius or 280 degrees Fahrenheit, which is used for heat-sensitive components or rework. Which means that a soldering iron would probably still do some pretty significant damage to a Drazi. Again, I think it's one of those numbers that they threw in without thinking and are actually just not as important or impressive as they thought it was. This is not uncommon. This happens all the time when people are writing some kind of fiction. Because not everybody can be an expert in everything, and if you try to write outside of your wheelhouse, these things happen. For JMS's wheelhouse was politics. And that's why Babylon 5 does politics really, really well. And also why a lot of this stuff is lacking somewhat when it comes to the biology, the sociology, anything that's like physical sciences. Now, getting back into environmental rules, I wanted to get into heat dangers. I've got cold dangers here, but heat dangers, here we go. Now, heat dangers assume human, or at least human-like baselines. So, heat deals non-lethal damage to victims. The character cannot recover from the damage dealt by a hot environment until they get out of the heat and cool off. A character in very hot conditions, okay? That's what we have to specify right there. Very hot. Specifically, anything above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Must attempt a fortitude save every hour, or take 1d4 non-lethal fire damage. If they're wearing heavy clothing or armor of any sort, they take a -4 in their saving throw. Now, severe heat, which is anything above 110, it's a fortitude throw every 10 minutes, or take 1d4 non-lethal fire damage. Same rules, except instead of every hour, it's now every 10 minutes. And that's going to cover where the Drazi line is, because extreme heat is 140. Or boiling water, fire, lava, whatever. Basically, once you hit extreme heat, it doesn't really matter how hot it is. There's not really an upper limit on that. So a Drazi would be considered in the severe heat area, and since they can only withstand it, they're still going to be rolling dice. They're not immune to it. So, I can't give it to them. I just can't. This is fine, though. I do think this is going to be fine. They're still going to get the +2 to Constitution. I'm going to give them the 4 hit points that pretty much every other race has gotten except for the Minbari so far. Size is going to be medium. Type is going to be humanoid, although it does say that they're reptilian. PC actually says, actually a better analogy is if they could bathe in boiling water at 100 degrees, and think that's kind of cold. Well, I mean, boiling water would be 100 degrees Celsius, and that would be 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Which, again, that's like well above their limits. You could absolutely boil a Eldrazi alive. But why would you? I mean, I suppose if you ask Ivanova, there's probably a list of reasons. Right, I was going to look at the different subtypes. How's I going to do that again? Creatures? Where was it? I was just looking at it earlier. Where did I find that? Races, rules, settings, aliens. I think it was aliens. Universal monster rules? Well, I mean, this shows us all the different things. Amphibious has the aquatic subtype. Or water breathing. I want to see all the different subtypes. I want to know if there's a reptilian subtype. Here we go. Creature subtypes. So the types are your normal aberration, animal, construct, humanoid, blah, 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 blah. Subtypes. Reptoid. This is applied to shape-changing aliens known as reptoids and creatures related to reptoids. Okay, maybe not that. Eldrazi don't change shape as far as I know. I don't actually see reptile in here. So, Aeon, Agathan, Android, Angel, Aquatic, Archon... Weird that I don't see it in here. I thought there'd be something for it. Let's see. No. Smarine, Sharon, Strix. Wow, I cannot believe there's not a reptilian subtype. That's just weird. And it's definitely not up in the creature types. Aberration, animal, construct, dragon, fae, humanoid. Eldrazi are absolutely humanoids. Magical beast, monstrous humanoids, ooze, outsider, plant, undead, and vermin. I don't know. I guess the Eldrazi are just going to have to be humanoid. Okay. And as far as the racial features go, they get sent. If I come over here to the Universal Monster Rules, it should be in here. Sea and Darkness... What? Sea and Darkness? What? It's not in here? Huh. Trample, troop attack, troop defense, troop immunities, true speech, undead immunities, unflankable, void, vortex... Oh, water breathing. Whirlwind. Wow, is there nothing in here for that? Some of the things that are missing from Starfinder, it makes you wonder if it was really done by the same company. Change shape, compression, construct immunities, create darkness, crush, dark vision, dependency, detect alignment, distraction, earth glide, elemental immunities, energy drain, engulf, fast healing, ferocious, charge, ferocity, fly, frightful, gaze, grab, immunities, integrated weapons, light blindness, limited plant benefits, limited telepathy, low light vision, mindless, multi-armed, multi-attack, natural weapons, no breath, oozes, plants, plant-like, pounce, radioactive, regenerative, resistance, see in darkness, see-through, sightless, solar adaptations. We're back to the same place we started last time. Wow, I'm going to have to actually borrow that from Pathfinder. I'm going to have to borrow that from Pathfinder just because it's literally just not in here. Let me check survival real quick. Because tracking is under survival. Following tracks. You can use survival to follow tracks or... Yeah, but that doesn't... I cannot believe that, like, nothing around here has this. I'm going to check the bestiary. Can I find something as simple as a wolf? Probably not. There's an animal here. These are 8-legged mammals with thick fleece and long trunks. The question is, do you have any kind of scent? Weaknesses, docile. Senses, blind sight, scent, 60 feet. So they have scent down as a sense, but not an ability. I don't know, I may have to look further into it and see what I can do with that. For the time being, I'll just leave it on there, and if I have to borrow the rules from Pathfinder, I can do that. They're not perfectly compatible, but they are mostly compatible. And PC says, no, you're right, I got C and F mixed up again. Yeah, you did, because if you are taking a 100-degree bath, I dare say you might even feel like that was a little cold. Most baths or showers tend to be warmer. Like, I think most of them are about 120 degrees. I mean, unless you like yours more on the mild side, in which case it could be cooler. But I think most of them are like 110, 120. I think. Don't quote me on that one. I could be wrong. Anyway, running out of time. Do I have enough time to get another race done? Probably not. I probably have enough time to at least pick the next race. Let's take a look. So we got Drazi. And I really thought we'd have more information about the Drazi. The Gayam. Oh my. Okay, I have to have the Gayam in here. At least I hope I can. So, homeworld is Nchikfa. So we got a homeworld for them. And we even have some information on it. Which is fine. They are a methane-breathing insectoid race. Biology. As methane breathers, game explorer drones, those most commonly seen off their homeworld, must wear specialized encounter suits in order to survive in a non-native atmosphere. And that's all we have for the biology. Social structure. We know that they're basically insects, and they're organized like insects. Advisor drones, balloon drones, explorer drones, the Ka'un Zum, which are hunter-gatherer drones, mind talkers, telepaths. They have a queen, they have warrior drones, they have worker drones. They're organized like that. So we have information on their society, we have information on their homeworld. The only thing we know about their actual body, though, is that they breathe methane. Which means that they're a little bit kind of weird. Now, insect races do exist. In Starfinder, we have the Shirin. The Shirin are once part of a ravenous hive of locust-like predators. Insectile Shirins only recently broke with their hive mind to create a race of telepaths physically addicted to their own individual. Well, it says physically addicted, but probably psychically addicted to their own individualism, yet dedicated to the idea of community and harmony with other races. So they get a bonus to their constitution and wisdom, -2 to their charisma, just because they won't stay out of people's heads. That's the Shirin, though. The Gayam, I could do something similar to that. So, the Gayam. Ability modifiers. If I were to copy the Shirin, it would be a +2 constitution, +2 wisdom, -2 charisma, which is kind of fair. They get a +2 constitution for having exoskeletons and things like that, +2 wisdom because of hive minds, and then -2 charisma because they're weird. Hit points, however, going to be a 4. Size, medium, type, humanoid. And then key racial features. Now, let's take a look at the Shirin and see if any of this works for us. So, Shirin's sensitive antenna grant them blind sense through vibration. Well, I can tell you this much. While that might be true for the Gayam, when they're outside of their encounter suit, they can't be outside of their encounter suit. They do have little antennas up there, for what it's worth. But I don't think those antennas do them much good when they're wearing a helmet. So I can't do that. What else did the Shirin get? Communalism. They're used to working with others as part of a team. Once per day, as long as an ally is within 10 feet, a Shirin can roll a single attack roll or skill check twice and take the higher result. I'm actually okay with giving them that. I'm actually okay with that. Communalism. I'll give that one to them. Now, as far as the rest of it, the cultural fascination, I'm not going to give them that just because I don't know if it necessarily fits the Gayam. And limited telepathy? No. We will be generating our own telepathy system, and so if telepathy happens, we'll have our own rules. I'm not going to give it to all of them. And if they do have to be a telepath, it'll probably be more powerful than what limited telepathy would be anyway. So, I think that'll be good enough for the Gayam. I think that'll work. Alright, with that done though, I am out of time. And we do still have a long way to go. I should have known that getting this all done in one sitting was probably not going to happen. However, we are through some of the League races. We still have the Grom, the Her, the Hayak. We have a lot of these guys. And a lot of these, I suspect, are not going to have anything to do. Like, the next one is the Grom. Do we even have anything on the Grom? Let's see. League, they have a homeworld. They do have a biology. They do have a society and culture. Okay, we might do the Grom. Others, though, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But not today. Not today. So we'll go ahead and we're going to close these down and we're going to get out of here. We did good. We did good today. Even the fact that like the Membari got three different entries because of their caste system. That's still 8 races to play, and if you want to count humans, which we didn't need to do, 9 races. That's already a nice starting point. We can work with that. And the rest, they're just going to be extra flavoring. Once we get to the Shadows and Vorlons, though, that's going to be fun. They're probably not going to be playable. Like, they're going to be... The only way they would be playable is if you made a very, very good case to me for why I should allow it. Because the Minbari are already stronger than pretty much all of the other races. Not brokenly so, but they are superior. The Vorlons and the Shadows are just going to be broken. So that'll be just... That's a no. That's just a pure no right off the bat. But we'll get into that one next time. So, if you want to be here for that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, that way you get notified every time these videos come out. If you know somebody else who's also into Pathfinder, Starfinder, or Babylon 5, share this video with them. If you dislike me, though, you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video. You can leave a comment down below, too. But if you're going to do that, why not just go, join the Discord? We have one. I have one. There's people on it. People that want to meet you. So join the Discord, and while you're there, come to the Behind the Screen channel. Let me know what games that you would like to play, and if we already have a working module that's ready to play test, then sure, we'll do it. Okay, I just need the people. So come there, let me know what you want to play, what your availability is, and as soon as I can throw together a team, we play. So, I hope to see you there. I hope to see you back here next week for more Babylon 5. And until then, take care.